Okay, my name is Alice Munyua. I come from Kenya. I'm currently advisor to the African Union Commission on mainly internet governance related issues and specifically the ICANN aspect of it. Oh yes, a lot of benefit, and not just within the ICANN and GAC system, but just generally ICTs. As you know, Africa has been left behind, one of the least served areas in terms of the internet and engagement with ICANN. And so it's very, very important for us, for the African Union, and especially taking into consideration that we were given this mandate by the African heads of state. And so we are the ones who need to coordinate most of the other African governments to be able to contribute, to enable them to contribute meaningfully to GAC processes and ICANN generally. So we see it as a very, very important role as well. And the GAC is a very important grouping of governments providing advice on public policy. And so we see that role as extremely important, the one that we are keen to continue. Certainly, and in fact we have Africa-related coordination meetings, and most of these are mainly towards capacity building and creating awareness and assisting African member states to be able to contribute effectively to GAC processes. And one of the things that I do at the practical level is taking some of the GAC policy issues that we are dealing with and translating them fast in different languages, French, and then translating them to fit our own context, to enable African governments to be able to contribute using the African context as their point of reference. There are several of them. Some of them, one of the most important one is to do with the country code top-level domains. We have several of our countries that still don't have their country code delegated. Some of them are struggling with redelegation. So that's one important area, and we're currently conducting a survey that is going to better inform African governments how to go about that process itself. Another issue, and I know, is the .Africa project. We've been waiting for it for such a long time because it's the one that's going to contribute toward engaging more African countries. It's one of the biggest projects that has brought the most African nations together. We've got nearly 40 or 50 of them participating in this initiative. So we're waiting for that. So then the project itself can then contribute towards other areas. For example, developing registries and registrars, assisting with local content, assisting with strengthening country top-level domain, building the capacity of other African governments to bring them here so they can contribute effectively and efficiently and meaningfully. And then right now, the issue of the ICANN transition and accountability is also an important one for African governments because, as you well know, it's been an issue at the international level, how ICANN is governed and managed, and the ICANN transition is one of those important aspects. And I represent the African countries on the accountability working group as well. I wouldn't call it suspicion. I would call it a lack of understanding or a lack of awareness of the role of ICANN generally. And that's simply because we haven't had to engage, some of our countries haven't had to engage with ICANN directly. Well, because, for obvious reasons, that perhaps at the country code level, we still don't have as many African countries at that level participating. And also, we haven't really been part of the ICANN processes, and not because we don't want to or we have there's suspicion. It's just because we are coming into this pretty late, but we are going to be among the next billion that are going to be using the internet. So it's going to be increasingly important to understand the role of ICANN and the GAC specifically, because that's where governments are able to then present their issues. I think the first one would be to understand the role of ICANN. And then the most important policy areas that the GAC is currently addressing. And those are, again, the ICANN transition, accountability, and then right now it's the use of the country code at the second level, issues of public safety, and how to approach underserved, how to help underserved regions. So those are the areas I would focus on in terms, so that I can prepare them. But I would also tell them it's really a lot of acronyms they'll have to catch up with. Yeah, that's all quite difficult. It took me nearly 2 years to actually really get into what ICANN was about. So I don't think anyone can understand it in just one meeting. But the GAC is a good place because it deals with nearly all the issues from a public policy perspective. So it's one of the best places to actually start if you're a government person, and then of course try and understand the other constituencies. You know, I think the GNSO for me being the most complex.